Hello and welcome to the Geeks of Mucklebee. My name is Nick and I am one quarter of the Geeks of Mucklebee.
My name's Oliver and I'm another quarter of the Geeks of Mucklebee.
Geeks of Mucklebee.
Mucklebee.
And today we are reacting to 14 most insane powers of Luke Skywalker. Now, I was looking through my notes and I was trying to see who requested this. It's been requested by about 5 people. And I'm sorry, I couldn't pull out which particular person. So thank you to everybody that's requested this one. It's by Star Wars Theory. We love all this sort of stuff, and Star Wars Theory he's amazing. So I'm sure we're going to love this one.
Yes.
You ready?
I think I am.
All right. Play.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Hey everyone, how are you all doing today? So today, let's talk about something pretty different and something I think is pretty cool. Luke Skywalker is by far one of the coolest characters in Star Wars, but let's be honest here, he's far from the most powerful Jedi that we've seen in the movies, with the possible exception of Force projecting himself across the galaxy in The Last Jedi. Basically, everyone else can do more than him. In the original trilogy, we saw Luke barely attain the rank of Jedi Knight, and only got a glimpse of his powers since he didn't really develop most of them until after Return of the Jedi. In canon, we know what happened with him up through Episode 8. But today, I want to take a look at Luke's most insane Legends Force
now
powers
we're talking.
and rank his top 14. Then you guys can decide if Legends or canon Luke is
Legends.
the most powerful. And in the comments, I want you to tell me
long.
which one is your all-time favorite, or if there's one that I didn't mention. Coming in at number 14. Freezing items and people in mid-air. We first saw this in canon in The Force Awakens when Kylo Ren froze the blaster bolt, and it was honestly pretty cool. So cool that Vader had to show him up in the fan film. But Luke was doing things like this long before Kylo, and his power here was actually far more powerful. We see this not in a battle, but when Luke stopped a food fight in the Jedi mess hall by freezing every person and thing in the room. He even froze single drops of liquid as they flew around. While freezing a single blaster bolt is awesome, freezing hundreds of small objects shows how in tune Luke was to the Force to have such perfect concentration. Number 13. Sensing other Force users. Similar to his ability to communicate with other Force users, Luke eventually became able to sense the presence of Force users around him. Basically, if another person who wielded the Force was in the presence of Luke, he would be able to feel their presence as well, and even be able to identify the person if he had encountered them before, kind of like how a dog sniffs stuff out. Granted, this isn't really an ability unique to Luke Skywalker, as Vader did it in A New Hope when Obi-Wan boarded the Death Star, and many other Jedi can do this too, but Luke's was pretty powerful. The ability doesn't just help Luke sense the Force, it also helps him identify the type of Force user. So essentially, if a dark side user tries to sneak up on Luke to attack him, he would know, thus foiling the surprise attack. Perhaps Luke would have been able to sense the Force in Palpatine when he was the Supreme Chancellor and hid his Force abilities from the Jedi Council. That would have solved a lot of problems, but then again...
But you've got people like Timothy Zahn and Kevin... You've got people like Timothy Zahn and Kevin J. Anderson writing the... and Michael Stackpole and all these other writers
at one point in Legends,
writing these powers, and they've got a better idea
Luke used an incredibly rare
of Star Wars than the script writers for Star Wars, and that is now canon.
Glow, freeing him from the arms of his enemy. The image itself is pretty cool to think about, but what's even cooler is what else it did. Force Light seriously heightened Luke's Force abilities and also diminished the powers of the dark side in any dark side user around him. In fact, it could be so powerful that it could permanently remove the dark side power from someone when Force Light...
Force Light advert.
You take card.
That is so annoying.
...was powerful enough. Coming in at number 11,
Continue.
we have Enhanced Force Dueling. Like most Jedi before and
That's
after
pretty
him, Luke
insane.
used a Force ability known as Force Speed in order to seriously enhance his dueling abilities. We saw this ability most clearly in the opening scene of The Phantom Menace as Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan ran down the hall in the droid-controlled ship at double speed. Luke took a different approach to this power and used it to slow down things to half speed around him. With the help of the Force Ghost of Obi-Wan, Luke learned how to seemingly slow down time for himself in a fight, giving himself more time to react to his opponent's movement. This became an incredibly useful skill for Luke, leading him to win every single lightsaber fight after he learned the skill. So this ability combined with the Force Speed made him a complete dueling legend. For number 10, we have Force Healing. At one point in Legends, Luke was fatally wounded after he was ambushed by a number of enemies. Despite the fatal wounds, though, Luke was able to force heal himself in order to keep himself alive and was back on his feet within a few hours. So it's almost like Wolverine, but not quite as fast. Number 9, communicating through the Force. This was an ability that we saw briefly in The Empire Strikes Back when Luke spoke to both Vader and Leia through the Force after his duel on Cloud City. Most have assumed that this was because he had a blood connection with both people, but in Legends, we see how powerful this skill became. After he went through more training and practice, Luke was eventually able to communicate with any Force user telepathically. Typically, we've only seen this ability used by Force ghosts, so the fact that Luke was able to pull it off was pretty remarkable. Luke then took things up to a new level in The Last Jedi by physically communicating with others through the Force, but that's a completely different ability, though they are in a way related. Number 8, changing his appearance with the Force. In Legends, Luke was basically a galactic celebrity and everyone knew who he was.
What?
So wherever he went, people recognized him. Basically, that meant going on
He
an
could influence,
undercover
so when they
mission
looked
was
at him,
pretty
they wouldn't
so
see,
one time, Luke had to use the Force to alter his physical appearance in order to disguise himself to rescue some kidnapped children. It was a brief trick
I've
that
read
was
that book.
only used for one time, yet it's still an incredibly cool ability. So Luke in Legends, from what we can see, is kind of like the X-Men. He's sort of like Mystique and Logan put into one. For number 7, we have disabling and overpowering computer technology. This is one of the weirdest out there, but could have spelt certain
Wait,
doom
that's
for
a picture
Vader
of
if
Luke
Luke had
using
learned
Force
this power
lightning.
earlier. Basically, Luke became a human lightning rod by causing himself to be repeatedly struck by lightning and charging himself up like a giant energizer battery that could then shock and disable technological items, like prosthetic arms, computers, and other similarly structured systems. Essentially, had Luke learned this power earlier, he would have been able to defeat Darth Vader simply by disabling all 4 of his prosthetic limbs. This Force power also allows the wielder to boost the range of antennas and other technological forms of communication, which probably could have helped a lot at the end of The Last Jedi. With number 6, we have becoming unmovable. At one point during the Legends, Luke was confronted by a group of dark side users.
Play with £88 free, no deposit needed.
Who attempted to overpower him using the Force. Instead of using Force Light against them, Luke used the Force to make himself unmovable, so their Force pushes had no effect on him. Luke did this by rooting himself in the Force, which apparently gave him the essence of an immovable object. No matter what Luke's enemies tried, they couldn't knock him down or push him back. It was said that not even a black hole could have moved Luke, as his connection to the Force was simply too powerful even for one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy.
Whoa.
In the number 5 slot, we've got Electric Judgment, and you've probably heard this one before from me. Basically, this is Force Lightning, but for light side users of the Force. In Legends, Luke used this power, or a variation of it, in an attempt to save his niece and nephew from the Slayers. His powerful version sent green sparks coursing over the body of a Slayer, instantly killing him and causing his body to convulse. It's pretty cool, and it's something I'm still waiting to see in one of the movies. And that's something that Mark Hamill said. He was hoping that in the sequel trilogy, he would have Force Lightning just coming out of his ears. With number 4, we have traveling into the realms of the Force. The Force realm, known as Beyond Shadows, is a place where incredibly powerful Force users are able to travel to if they are able to completely leave their physical state behind. Luke traveled to this realm only once when he went to receive more knowledge, and ultimately ended up fighting and permanently defeating one of the most powerful dark-side users of Legends. For reference, traveling beyond shadows is very much like Force projecting, though Luke is physically still in the normal universe. His mind and spirit are somewhere else entirely. It takes a great deal of power and concentration to pull off, which is why Luke is one of the few Jedi in history to travel there. Coming in at number 3, we have being one with the Force in life. Now, some Jedi become one with the Force after their life ends, like Obi-Wan and Yoda, who return as Force ghosts. Because of this, most people assume that you have to die first in order to become a Force ghost, but Luke apparently never heard those rules. At one point in Legends, Luke showed his intense connection with the Force by actually becoming completely one with the Force while still being alive and then returning to mortal form. He did this during a fight against an army of enemies, and everyone who witnessed it were in absolute awe towards Luke's abilities. His movements were swift and described to be without thought. It is the fighting style that nearly every Jedi sought to achieve, and Luke pulled it off seamlessly. So this is something I hope that happens in Episode 8, that he actually didn't die, he just became one with the Force, but I don't know. I don't know if they're going to pull for that. We'll see. Number 2 may not be as most powerful on here, but it's definitely super cool. It's taking hold of a black hole. Earlier, it was mentioned that Luke was so strong with the Force that not even a black hole could move him. This ability takes that up to a new level, as Luke is so powerful that he can move a black hole with the Force. Luke once used this ability to save himself when he moved a black hole out of his path in order to not have his ship sucked into it. Not only that, he moved the black hole into the path of one of his pursuers, basically killing them in the most outrageous closest way possible. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. Coming in at number 1 isn't exactly the most powerful power he has, but when you hear it,
It's not easy being special. Let
These
me explain.
adverts. It's
you're
awful.
going to understand why it's number 1. It is walking on lava. The power that Anakin needed more than anyone. So how did Luke do it? Once in Legends, to prove his incredible connection with the Force, Luke walked across lava. As he did it, people said he was throbbing with the Force, focusing on his connection as he walked to ensure that he didn't get a single burn on his body. In addition to this, Luke was also fighting a giant fireworm as he did this, which he beat because, he's Luke. Now, I'm just gonna say that if Luke didn't talk about this with his Force Ghost dad, then it's one of the greatest travesties of the entire Star Wars saga. So what do you guys think about it? I think it's pretty clear that Legends Luke was probably one of the most powerful beings ever in Star Wars, and definitely more powerful than Canon Luke. But is this the Luke we actually would have wanted to see? My answer is yes. So while I totally want to see a powerful Jedi Luke, I also would like to ask myself and you guys if we want to see someone so powerful that we know he's always going to win. Would that take away some of the fun? Well, you guys can let me know down in the comments. Leave a like on this one if you enjoyed it. I loved making this one. There's some cool info in here, and I hope we, at least we'll get to see some of these powers someday in the movies.
It'd be cool
Until
to
the
know
next episode
that
of Star Wars Theory,
that they can take a beating but always get back up. In my opinion.
There we go.
That just shows how immensely powerful Luke is.
This was my biggest issue with what we ended up with in episode 8, because with the bits that I kind of read up to, the expanded universe as it was known then before it became Legends, it had gone on into the future. There were some that had gone quite far into the future beyond Luke's life, but the majority of the continuous timeline had gone up to about 36 years, 40 years after the battle, or after Return of the Jedi, basically. And roughly that's kind of the same time jump that we've got in the films. So they could have just left it nearly all in place, but the Luke we had in he was undoubtedly, he wasn't just the Jedi Master, he was a Grand Jedi Master. He is exceptionally powerful, and he'd done some amazing things that I got to pretty much the end of the Yuzong Fong novels.
I'm still reading them.
So then there's the after that I think there's the Swarm stuff and the Join I'm not sure. There's other things that come after that, I think. But apparently it was just in no doubt. Even after that, Luke was just on a different level, and I have some awareness of what goes on beyond what I've read. And it's just like the Luke that we ended up with.
Did the character no justice?
No, I felt what we had was where Luke went and would have become and should have become, and that was my whole thing. The Luke we had in the expanded universe is far superior to the Luke that we've got in Disney films, and it was kind of like they downgraded Luke to kind of raise up Rey, and I've got no issue with a powerful Rey whatsoever. Welcome it, but you don't need to destroy the legend of Luke Skywalker to achieve that. This was supposed to be the Skywalker trilogy. I'm hoping that there's going to be something that knocks us off, that blows us away. And it's kind of like, wow, you know.
Or they turn around and say that the books are now canon again.
No, they're not going to do that. That embrace that she has, because when Chewbacca, this is the bit I never got, when Chewbacca walks past Leia, Han's just died. They don't even look at each other. And she goes and hugs Rey, and they get emotional, and they have that long hug.
And they don't even know each other.
No, that's the first time Leia has ever laid eyes on Rey, apparently. But in the script it said a mother's hug. Or a mother's embrace, basically. So I think she was intended to be Kylo Ren's sister.
I think, Rogue One was a very good film. But I think Disney has to make this next film amazing if they want to save themselves. In my opinion.
Fair enough. Well, there you go, guys. That is our reaction to 14 Insane Powers of Luke Skywalker. Really good by Star Wars Theory. Very informative. Quite a few of them I did know about from reading the expanded universe. Thought that was great. If you liked our if you liked our reaction, then please hit the like button and the share button. And if you want to see more from us, please hit the subscribe button. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.